and welcome to the Power Gamer Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Dawson, joined as always by fellow host Johnny Paulus. Johnny, welcome in.
What's up?
It's been a big week for us.
It has been a very big week.
It's been a big, busy week for your boys at the Power Gamer Podcast. Many of you have found us for the first time. Thanks to some retooling, thanks to some learning I've been doing about the platform that is YouTube. And really pleased with how much growth we had just over the past week. I mean, we've been doing this podcast for well into 2 years. And our last video release, really, I would say the first one where I kind of had all the changes down that I wanted to make on a publication. 214 of you tuned in just on that platform alone. So welcome in, YouTube audience. We had a lot of comments on the video. So a lot of activity there, a lot of passion for Game Pass, if you will.
The Game Pass defenders coming out strong.
Game Pass White Knights have assembled, and it was cool to see. So been a good week. Very happy with the work that we've been putting in here. But I digress. Johnny, how are you doing this week, sir?
I'm doing good. I didn't have any gigs this weekend, so it's been a nice, lazy, sit around the house and play video games kind of weekend. My perfect kind of weekend. So yeah, I'm doing well. I know I said last week I was going to beat Chained Echoes, but for real this week, probably tonight.
This time it's for real.
That's right. This time I really mean it. I really mean it this time.
Yeah, today I hosted a big ass barbecue at my house, and I got this new grill that has 5 burners on it, and
that'll do.
It usually, to do like a whole chicken on the grill, which I love doing whole barbecue chickens on the grill.
Beer can chicken or?
No, that trendy shit. No, thank you.
I love beer can chicken. Shit's bomb.
Beer can chicken's fine, but I like to do set up my grill almost like a smoker, where the chicken's being cooked in indirect heat. And on my old setup, it would take me 4 hours to do the bird. On my new one, 2 hours.
Nice.
Like, hell yes.
Nah, that's great. That's awesome.
It's like, fuck you, chicken.
Take that, fucking bird.
You're going to be delicious in half the time. And so, we pulled out all the stops. We made the chicken. We made a big tray of homemade mac and cheese. We made our own buns for the sandwiches. We made green beans and bacon. We made baked beans. And we had a cake because it was my gathering for my father's 68th birthday. So happy birthday to you, Dad. You left our house probably 5 pounds heavier than when you arrived.
Sounds like that's my kind of birthday, though. That's what I want for my birthday. Just make me loads of food.
Yeah, and we did something yesterday, like we went out for breakfast or whatever, but not everyone was there, and I was like, yeah, party foul. We need to have everyone over to the house and do this properly. So that we did. That was probably the highlight of my weekend. I also did a little bass playing, some Sunday morning assistance. But yeah, no, cooking chickens and mac and cheese was definitely the highlight of the week, if you will. Of course, this week upcoming, I've got to do some very mild work travel, but I'll get through that. No hoteling, thankfully. It's all within striking distance of the house. So Yeah, that's different for you. No gigs in the weekend. I like it.
Yeah, it was nice.
I like it. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. This is episode 125 of your Power Gamer podcast. We do, of course, ask that wherever you listen to our show, which you are listening to it for free, no doubt, because I do not have the show published anywhere where you would have to pay to listen to it. In your support, I would just ask that if you could like the video, if you're watching it on YouTube, or if you're listening to it on one of the money audio platforms that we publish to, do the equivalent there, whether it's a like or a nice review, what have you, or follow it. Just something, just a little something, because we're gonna have you here for the next hour. And yeah, while you're listening, maybe just click on something to give us some support. We would graciously appreciate it. It helps us out as we continue to grow the show and bring it to a wider audience.
Smash that like button if you're on YouTube.
That poor like button gets smashed around all the time.
It do though.
Yeah, it's got the smash pass.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. So yeah, just reflecting a little bit on last week's episode. I guess something that I needed to clarify to some of the listeners out there, maybe that walked away, or maybe they just didn't really listen to the episode, but they just kind of read the title and assumed the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Here's just something I want to clarify real quick before we get into the meat of this week. So, clarification on my stance on passing on Game Pass. It really boils down to the promise of Game Pass is Microsoft first party day one releases. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the reason why it boils down to that is if you don't have that, there's no difference between Game Pass and Sony's PlayStation Plus. And you get PlayStation Plus for a one-time fee, and you get a lot more, frankly, in that library. So for anyone coming to me with the argument of, oh, yeah, they're not giving you the day one content, but there's all this other stuff, I hear you. I understand what you mean. If you don't own a PlayStation, I'm not saying, well, you fucked up. You definitely need to go buy one of those. No. That's not what's being said. What is being said, though, is if perhaps you bought the Xbox because Microsoft has all these first party studios that, and the promise of day one content, all Microsoft games will be on here day one. It hasn't happened. And you may be very happy with your service, but you do have to understand that some people have to be very selective with how they spend their money. And to have bought a system and bought a service only for the promises to have not been delivered on, that is what I'm talking about. So, yeah, if you've never played, I don't know, any video game in the past 20 years, Game Pass is going to look like a great deal regardless. However, if you're a avid gamer, let's say someone so avid about gaming that you would listen to a podcast that's an hour long once a week where they just talk about new video games, right? I know I got a lot of new people in here, but you got to understand who you are as our audience. You are a hardcore into this hobby person, because otherwise, why would you be here? You wouldn't be.
Yep.
If you were just into talking about games that were released on the Xbox 360, I'm sure there's a podcast that predicates to that person.
I'm sure there is.
Like the Xbox 360 Nostalgist podcast.
It's
not what we're doing here. We're talking about new games. We're talking about the industry. And yeah, it's unfortunate that we don't get to talk about this service in a positive light. I would much prefer to say Xbox is coming out with all these great day one games. You pay $15 a month, you have access to all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what's happening. And
Yeah.
it's not in the forecast either.
Well, and that was our conversation, and that was our stance for, like, I don't know, the first year and a half of this podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, we've told people many times, if you're not paying for Game Pass, you should be. But what's changed, and what the conversation we had last week was, and Mike's exact quote was, why am I still paying for Game Pass? Right? So Mike and I, being avid gamers, we look at that list of Game Pass, and there's 45% already own it or have already played it. And then there's like another 30% of a whole rack of indie games that I have no interest in checking out. And I have nothing against indie games, but there's so fucking many of them that it's just like, you just like randomly like, I guess I'll devote a week to this game. There's just too many. But the big point is like with the way Sony is, you know, I mean, we got Call of Duty this month. That's not nothing. I got Call of Duty Cold War. Here you go. Like, oh shit, I can actually like play the campaign now. That's kind of cool. That's an expensive game. That's not you know, whatever McPixel 3 that just got released on Game Pass. I mean, so I think the big thing we want to take away is, it's not even really an apology, but just to make clear that Game Pass is still a good value. If you look at that list of games and are like, oh my God, there's all these games I haven't played. But Mike and I are in that category where we look at that list and we're like, there's a whole lot of I don't care, or I've already got it, I already got it on the PC, or I've already beat that game. There's just not enough new, fresh shit coming from Xbox. And that was the linchpin in our conversation is, where is Microsoft in this equation? Because right now it's just like, here's some more shovelware, enjoy. Here's some more shovelware, enjoy.
Well, exactly. And, you know, Hi-Fi Rush can be purchased for $30. I played and beat Hi-Fi Rush. Let's say I paid 2 months of subscription. That's $30. Redfall came out. I'm one of the 2% of people that actually played and completed Redfall.
Yeah.
Okay. You can buy Redfall on Instant Gaming for $60. So that's 4 months. So now we're up to 6 months. Okay. Of subscription.
Yeah.
Well, it's fucking July, ladies and gentlemen. It's month 7.
Right.
Okay. And by the time the year's done, right, I really don't care about Forza. So I've got Starfield left.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will have paid more in subscription just to have the privilege to play it while my subscription is active.
Yeah.
Than I would have if I just bought the games and owned them forever. That's the point. So all this other stuff's great, but I've already done it.
Right.
Already fucking done it. And frankly, because I play almost everything new that comes out, I don't even have time to do that as it stands. So that's where I'm coming from. If you don't like it, tell me more. Tell me all about it. You can tell me in the comments below why I'm an idiot. You can white knight for the company that has more money than God, yet still always ends up in a distant third place to their competitors. Tell me why they're better. I'd be curious to know. That being said, Johnny, I played a game on Game Pass this week. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for our first segment to discuss the games we've been playing this week. I'll get us started this week, sir. Let's dive right in here and talk about Capcom's latest release. It's a game with dinosaurs and mechs. It's called Exoprimal, and it was a day one release on Game Pass from Capcom. This game's interesting. Okay. It's definitely, Exoprimal is definitely for someone. Okay. There's definitely someone out there that's going to sit down and play this game, and they're going to say, I'm going to dump 500 hours into this game. That person totally exists. Here's the good about Exoprimal.
Okay.
It's a Capcom game, and it has the sheen of a Capcom product. The game runs pretty well at 60 frames most of the time until the screen really gets flooded with dinosaurs. But most of the time, it's running at a solid 60 frames per second. Get this, Johnny, on the fucking Series X. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. The machine of never-ending FPS sadness
Kick them while they're down, Mike.
is running a game at 60 frames per second. How did Capcom manage that while Arcane did not? Huh. Anyway, so Exoprimal, as advertised, is a game that sort of looks like if they took the suits from Anthem and put them in a world with dinosaurs. That's basically Exoprimal. Unfortunately, Exoprimal is a game that's a lot like Anthem with dinosaurs. I'll explain. So coming into Exoprimal, I really, I watched a couple trailers on it, but I really didn't poke my nose too deeply into it. I'm like, it's going to come out on Game Pass. That tells me enough right there that Capcom's not confident that this game's going to sell. Because otherwise, why would they take the paycheck from Microsoft to put it on Game Pass? So I fire it up. Unfortunate thing number one, I had to waste about 10 minutes of my day registering for a Capcom ID before I could even log in and play this game. I hate that shit. I've got an Xbox account. Just let me in. So I get in. A lot of cinematics, character customization. I'm like, all right, cool. We're getting into this. And it looks like the game's going to have a lot of story behind it. It's sort of done up like Sharknado, where there's these weather vortexes that dinosaurs pour out of. I'm like, fucking Sharknado with dinosaurs. I'm into this. This is hilarious. Play through the tutorial. It introduces the assault class, the tank class, and the support class. And it's pretty cool. You can actually like switch your suits mid combat and stuff. So if you want to switch over to a tanker, you can do it. So I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. So then the story kicks in. All right, we're all on a plane. We've been assigned to an undangerous territory because we're some newbie that's just been recruited into the dinosaur fighting force. And so your character's bored out of their mind, but then suddenly appears a dinosaur vortex over the mysterious island. So you have to bail out of the ship because the vortex fucks your airplane up. You drop down, you come to some ruins where you're greeted by this. Hold on to your pants, ladies. Where you're greeted by an AI. Okay, and the AI tells you that you've come to his laboratory where he researches how to make new exosuits to fight the dinosaurs, and that he's going to dimensionally warp you into war games to see you fight the dinosaurs and analyze your performance. Very sad to report that the entire game is that. You are now held captive by an AI on some island playing simulated combat against dinosaurs.
Are you sure that isn't like a starting zone or something?
That's the entire game.
Why?
So
what are my stakes if I'm in a fucking fake battle every time?
Yeah, so and it's the only way the game would work once you start understanding what the game actually is. So you are competing in this war game against another team of 5 actual players to see who can clear the levels the fastest. Okay. And in the final stage of the level, it goes from being a PvE thing to very a la Overwatch. You're moving a cart with a thing on it while shooting each other against like the other team for real. And that's the game. So it's a competitive hero shooter where instead of heroes, you have exosuits that takes place in a simulated AI war game.
Ugh.
And so I'm like, oh, okay. So the story was kind of going there for me for a second, but that's where we're at, and that's what the game is. So you're really just playing a PvE PvP hero shooter, and that's the game. So here's my thoughts right off the bat. So it's a day one Game Pass game. Okay.
Yeah.
This game should be free to play.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, that was the first thought I had.
Because as soon as you clear that tutorial where you find out what the fuck is up, buy all these skins, buy all these credits, I'm like, you gotta be shitting me.
Wow.
So it should be a free to play game. The game plays fine-ish.
Right.
I mean, there's so much shit on the screen, you don't really even know what you're shooting at unless it's like one enemy. Like if a T-Rex appears or something. And then it's just like a Destiny damage sponge.
Right.
And yeah, it's very okay. Definitely not for me, because I like story-driven single-player games. But for those that like the occasional competitive whatever, you have so many better choices than this.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, if you want a PvEVP, just go play Gambit in Destiny, or just go play, I don't know, any of the other games that are a lot better than this one.
That are all free to play.
Correct. So, Exoprimal, I'm glad that I didn't have to pay for that specific game. But for anyone trying to wave their finger and going, Exoprimal was a day one Microsoft exclusive, I will retort, who cares? Should be free to play. It probably will be in a few months everywhere.
Yeah, that does not sound like a $60 product.
No.
At least in today's market. I mean, 15 years ago, before Fortnite and Overwatch and everything else, sure, but
yeah. So, some of you, like I said, some of you guys out there are going to be like, I'm going to sink 500 hours. Great.
it's fine. I'm glad you dig it.
It's fantastic. But for anyone expecting something different, you might want to pass on Exoprimal.
Well, I mean, if anyone remembers when they presented this game originally, like my give a fuck-o-meter was at like a 1. I mean, it was barely reading a number. And now that you've told me what it actually is, it's a full-blown 0. I'm not even going to play this thing. I'm just not interested.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? It's a new game and it's from Capcom. Let me sit down and play, because Capcom is my shit, dude. I love Capcom. And it makes total sense to me why Capcom made this. This game is going to make them a fucking ton of money because of the microtransactions. Like, they need to have this in their portfolio. Not denying that.
Yep.
Plenty of people are going to play this game. Not denying that. But you're probably not listening to the show, if that's you. Next up. So I went from Octopath Traveler 2 right into another big JRPG, Fire Emblem Three Houses, which I had mentioned that I wanted to tackle a couple weeks ago when we did our show on our backlog. So I've kept true to my word. I jumped right into it after beating a 75-hour long pixel art JRPG.
Jump right back in.
And I gotta say, I understand now why this game has been so highly regarded on the Switch as a enthusiast of JRPG strategy style games, this is amazing. It's so deep. What you can do with how you build your characters, how you handle their loadouts. Um, so just on this strategy gameplay front, it's really good. And yeah, I really didn't know too much about this game series before I just popped it in and started playing it. It has this great like whole gameplay loop of you're a teacher and your compatriots on the battlefield are your students. And so every week you have to hold class. And that's how you build up their skill points towards how you're building them.
Oh, that's clever.
And you like go one-on-one with students to go, well, let's give you a boost, but how much you can boost them each week depends on how motivated they are, and you build their motivation by like taking them out to lunch or letting them rest or whatever. It's really cool. It's really deep. It's really well done. It has like this cool hub world that you operate out of that you can do missions in each week. I'm really liking Fire Emblem Three Houses. And yeah, I can see why there's so many of these games coming out and why this one has been so popular for so long. So I'm definitely glad to finally have my teeth into it. I put 20 hours into this game already this week. So I've been rocking and rolling on some Fire Emblem Three Houses. I'll certainly have more to say on the weeks to come. I think it's about a 50-hour game, so there's a slight possibility I could have it finished by next week. Slight. But it'll probably be 2 weeks before I have this one completely cleared out. Fire Emblem Three Houses. That's the one I'm going to be living with for the next couple of weeks. Johnny, on to you, sir. Chained Echoes.
Yes, sir. Chained Echoes. I have a new fresh gripe with this game, and it's a minor one because I am really, really enjoying this game. It's gonna end. I think it's gonna be a high 8s when I'm done reviewing it. I think it's gonna be like a 8.6, 8.8, something like that. It's a very, very, very strong game. But I've complained before about the difficulty on this game, and now I have a new fresh take on that complaint because I've gone into the difficulty settings, and there are several settings that you can move up or down. And one of them is enemy stats. And so when you start your game, the enemy stats is at normal. I got to another fight that I just couldn't get through. And unlike most JRPGs where you can just wander around and get random battles and level up, you can't do that in this game. In this game, you only level up through like killing big bosses, finishing big quests. That's the only thing that levels you. So you can't just go, well, I'll just go fuck around and come back. It doesn't work. Like if that's your path and that's where you have to go, you got to figure out how to get past that thing. And so I finally got frustrated. I said, you know what? I'm really far through this game. Let me just go to enemy stats and bump it down 1. So I do that, and then I start blasting through the game. I mean, like, bosses were dead without even a challenge. And now it's like, well, this isn't fun anymore. So I go put it back to normal, and I'm back to getting absolutely creamed. So it's like I've had to basically put it on low, which makes the game too easy. So the small gripe that I have for Mr. Matthias Linda, the sole developer of this video game, is maybe have more settings there, because low feels too low and normal feels too high. I feel like if there were maybe a graded scale of 5 difficulty settings instead of 3 or 4, that might do it. And it would be an easy thing to do. I mean, JRPGs are all math. That's all it is like this does between this and this damage. If it crits, it does between that and that damage. It would be easy enough to have another difficulty setting that's not as low, but is not as high as normal. So it's right now, normal feels too hard and low feels way too easy. So, but again, this game is fucking awesome. If you are a subscriber on Game Pass, it's on there. Check it out. Especially if you're a fan of like old school SNES era JRPGs. Now, that being said, this game has finally revealed its big major story twist probably at about the 80, 90 mark. So I have a better understanding of what's really going on. And it was quite a twist, and it really took me by surprise. I was very impressed with the way that it was handled, and really cool character reveal between a few characters that are linked somehow. I won't ruin anything past that. But Chained Echoes is still a strong recommend. I am like officially winding up to the last boss battle. I'll probably have him beat before the night is done. So that's where we're at with that. And then Jedi Survivor, I got another, I don't know, 3 sessions into this game. This game has one of the best like getaway moments ever. Like it's up there with Uncharted. There's one part in this game.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You've gone in to try to save someone, and then there's a big fucking thing trying to kill you, and you and your compatriot have to do this really fucking cool sequence just between jumping and dodging, and it's really, really fucking cool. Like I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to ruin it at all, but I will tell you, like, it's up there with like Uncharted 4's getaway in the car. Maybe that was Uncharted 3. What was the one where you and your brother were in the car together?
That's
up there.
That one is 4.
That's why I thought it was in 4. Yeah.
So you'll remember when I was playing this game, I came in one week and said, man, I just saw the best thing that's ever been in a video game ever. That's the sequence you're talking about.
It's God tier, man. It's really, really good. So good.
Mm-hmm.
Also, so now, since last time I talked about this game, I've unlocked the blaster stance and then the crossguard stance. As soon as I got the crossguard stance, I immediately reset my skills and put as many points into crossguard as I could. This is the Unga Bunga build in this game. Everything fucking hurts and everything is slow as fuck. You just like find a way to stagger them or knock them over, and then whoosh, you do so much damage with the crossguard. It's like the Kylo Ren style of lightsaber fight. It is not finesse. It is all big fucking swings, and it's a lot of fun. So when you were like working your way toward the end of that game, what were your 2 stances that you kind of stuck with?
I did single blade standard and crossguard.
Got it.
Because I think the single blade, although it's boring, like amidst the other choices, it's clearly the best of the game. Like clearly, the dual leaves you exposed too much.
Right.
The double edge really is only good in AoE situations.
Yeah, the double blade is only good when you need to kill a lot of enemies.
And I just found, I could get anything that was hairy, I could get through easiest with single.
Yeah.
And then it was boss fight time to switch over to crossguard.
Now, I kind of wish in this game, and I don't think I'm alone here, I wish that this game had an option where, like, let's say you hold left on the D-pad and a radial comes up with the different stances. I think I would enjoy the combat a little bit more if I could just change to any stance I want whenever I want. Because there are times when I'm like, double bladed would be really nice here. I wish I had my blaster. And it's like, because you don't really know what you're going to get into, so you're kind of forced to like choose favorites and just try to get as good as you can using just those 2. But I wish they'd done some kind of radial. I mean, like in Ghost of Tsushima, you can change any of the stances whenever on the fly, just like that. And I kind of wish this game had that. After Ghost of Tsushima did it, I wished that Jedi Survivor had done it as well. It wouldn't be hard for them to just give you all your stances. I don't know, maybe they felt that was broken in some way.
I don't disagree. I think that would have made sense, but I also didn't mind.
No, I mean, I'm
found my niche.
Yeah, I'm doing blaster and crossguard. I do like the blaster quite a bit. It is handy to have the charged shot. And now that I have the ricochet shot as well, that's really fucking cool. You charge it up, you hit it, it hits multiple targets. I use that when they're far away, and then when they're up close, I just fucking destroy them with the crossguard.
Yeah, I just couldn't bring myself to use a blaster. I'm like,
I like the blaster. The blaster's fun.
Like, no, I'm gonna.
So Jedi Survivor, this is going to end up in the 9s. I'm fairly certain. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near the 8s. It's a very, very, very good, very strong. And lastly, your boy hit Infinite again this season in Marvel Snap, and I did it rather quickly. It was like maybe a week and a half. What got me over the hump was my Shuri Nimrod deck. That's a spicy meatball, man. It's when you get off the combo of Shuri Nimrod and then turn 6, you Deathlock a lane and then Venom another one, or Venom a lane and Carnage a lane. Any combination of those, you now have a 12 Nimrod that just goes all over the place. My favorite is when they try to Shang a lane and it just makes 2 more Nimrods in the other 2 lanes. But it's a very, very strong deck. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Now that I hit Infinite, though, I get to experiment a little bit. And the first thought I had was there are a lot of cards right now that are about raising the power levels, right? There's a lot of Venoms. There's a lot of buffing cards happening right now. So I have figured out that, a Surfer deck with Shadow King turn 6 is pretty brutal. And because the amount of times that I'm playing against a bounce deck and they have an Angela and then they've got a bishop, and then turn 6 they drop their Kitty Pride that's like a 8. I just put Shadow King there. Angela's a 0, Bishop's a 1. It's broken. It's really, really strong. So I've been having a lot of fun with Shadow King Surfer. I still think it needs a little bit of a tweak. Nakia did get a buff this week, and that was what inspired me to make the deck. So Nakia now, when you play Nakia, she gives +1 power to every card in your hand. Incredibly strong. So I actually think I might want to experiment with a Koye and Nakia in a Surfer deck. If all the cards are just getting buffed before I even Surfer, then they're going to be even bigger with Surfer. Could be fun. But yeah, so that's what I've been up to. I've been playing a lot of Snap. I hit Infinite, and then I got, 2-3 good sessions with Survivor and 4 or 5 good sessions with Chained Echoes, which I'm probably going to beat tonight.
You could also make a Cerebro 4 deck. That might not suck if you get that one card. Otherwise, it's a 3.
That's true.
Ladies and gentlemen, this wraps the games that we've been playing this week. It is now time to discuss this week's news, which it's been kind of slow in the news end of things, as hasn't been a ton of games coming out, and we've just kind of all been sitting patiently waiting and watching this court case unfold with Microsoft and the FTC over their bid to buy Activision, which seems to be nearing completion. And one of the biggest hurdles that was presented early on in these talks was revolved around what Microsoft is really buying when they buy Activision, which is Call of Duty.
Yep.
So today it was revealed that Microsoft and Sony have signed an agreement to keep Call of Duty games on PlayStation consoles. Phil Spencer tweeted earlier this morning, "We are pleased to announce that Microsoft and PlayStation have signed a binding agreement to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation following the acquisition of Activision Blizzard. We look forward to a future where players globally have more choice to play their favorite games." Sort of the whole argument against presented by Sony was that by Microsoft buying Activision, that their control of Call of Duty and their possibility or ability to take it off PlayStation was just too much. I don't think that Microsoft ever intended to not have Call of Duty on a Sony PlayStation because so much money is generated on the PlayStation. As these cases played out, due to some poorly redacted letters, which we've had a lot of those. But we learned that Call of Duty generated $800 million in revenue for PlayStation in the United States alone, and as much as $1.5 billion globally in 2021. We also learned that about 1 million PlayStation users only play Call of Duty and nothing else.
That's sad. Sad.
So, Johnny, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on Sony and Microsoft finally coming together and shoring up Call of Duty?
I'm frankly surprised this took as long as it did, because it felt like this was the consensus months ago. I mean, Microsoft has been saying from the jump, like, we don't want to take it off PlayStation. We want to make that fucking Sony dollar on our Call of Duty toy we just bought. I still, however, believe that, this commitment is 10 years. So what happens in 2033? I mean, is Microsoft going to have a Call of Duty only on Xbox? Or are people still going to give a shit about Call of Duty 10 years from now? I mean, that's 10 years is a long time. I know Call of Duty's been grand poobah for a real long time, but do we know that that's going to remain the case for another 10 years? Who knows? Might not.
Yeah, I think some people have just become so automatically invested into it.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know that in another decade it can still be as relevant. Like, it was supposed to be unrelevant already.
Right.
And I'm sure they've lost a lot of interest from gamers over the years, but certainly they've brought in new interest in the series as well, because you and I both used to play the shit out of these games.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the last most recent Call of Duty game, if you remember, I bought it and then 30 minutes later refunded it on the Blizzard app, because as soon as I got in and I started playing it, like, it ran great, it looked great, everything was all awesome, and then I started getting PTSD of, like, do I really want to sit here and grind out the fucking obsidian skin on every gun in the game again? Is that really the path that I want to take? Not judging people that are into Call of Duty. If that's your thing, dude, I mean, Lord knows it was my thing for a very long time. I get it. But now I look at that cost of entry, which is literally just grind every day, every single day, grind this game for months and months and months to get the unlocks and shit that you want, and I just don't have the patience for that. But I mean, as far as this acquisition, I mean, you're right. Microsoft bought this for Call of Duty. That's why they did this. And frankly, I thought Sony's argument was kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's like Sony owns Spider-Man. That's as big.
Nowhere close to this. Not even kind of.
Sony owning the movie rights and licensing rights for movies and video games, I would argue, is going to get close to that Call of Duty number.
But
because they make Spider-Man movies too.
Here's where it's different. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sony owns them, in order to generate revenue off them, they have to spend money. That $1.5 billion, they didn't have to do anything. That's just a check that they're handed for somebody else's work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Not a finger has to be lifted. And
that's a very good point.
During the entire lifespan of Call of Duty, they've just been collecting that cash because they provide a platform on which that can be played.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have that at risk, yeah,
it's like losing an annual Avengers Endgame.
Well, and the other thing to keep in mind too,
a lot of money,
is that Sony is not Microsoft. Sony is very small in comparison to Microsoft. Very small. And they have to be thrifty with their money. You know, Sony hangs with the big dogs on a budget.
Yeah.
Whereas Microsoft has all the money in the world and doesn't hang with them. So, you know, it's one of those things where those dollars matter a lot to Sony. If you told Microsoft that you could lose $1.5 billion a year if some deal goes through, they don't give a fuck. I mean, they're going to care for their fiduciary trust to their shareholders, but I mean, in the grand scheme of that company, that's peanuts to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think in regards to Call of Duty. It's that two point that they just collect that cash, and it's a shit ton of cash.
Yeah.
That they can't really risk losing, honestly.
That makes sense.
Now details around the deal have not been revealed. We did get this following quote from Phil Spencer that I found over on ye old IGN. So here's the quote. I'm making a commitment standing here that we will not put Call of Duty. It is my testimony. We will not pull it from PlayStation. As you said, Sony obviously has to allow us to ship the game on their platform. But absent any of that, my commitment is, and my testimony is, that we will continue to ship future versions of Call of Duty on Sony's PlayStation 5. So yeah, it seems like this deal is just in perpetuity. I don't know.
Right.
I would highly doubt that there was ink and paper signed that says forever.
Right.
But I'll be curious to see if we don't get a year associated with that, or a time frame, or the console's lifespan or something.
I would also be curious about exclusive content. play the new Call of Duty on Game Pass. Get these skins. Get this.
Call of Duty will never come to Game Pass.
No, you're right. It won't. Okay, so then, but what if the physical version on Xbox has a different pre-order bonus than Sony? I mean, that would be another angle that Microsoft could do to try to twist the blade. Do you think they'll do anything like that, or do you think they're just going to just avoid all drama and just release as is?
No, I can see things like that, but I think none of that truly matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 1 million people that maybe only play Call of Duty on PlayStation, you might lose some of them to Xbox. I'm not saying all of them, because a lot of people give a fuck about trophies and consistency, or a lot of players like this have preferences on what controller they play the game with.
Well, I think friends list is probably one of the biggest impacts.
Absolutely.
If all your buddies have an Xbox, you probably don't want to buy a PS5.
But no, I still think that PlayStation's greatest attractor is all the other stuff that you get with PlayStation that you don't get on Xbox.
Yep.
And yeah, there's no way this game's ever a Game Pass game.
No, you're right.
You don't need to take. How much money would they lose if they did that? Billions. It just wouldn't even make sense why they're buying this. And this, unfortunately, we're not harping on last week's episode, but
it does circle back a little bit.
It absolutely does. And it's why you won't see a game like this on Game Pass. It's why every important person in the industry hates Game Pass. Every publisher, every major game company despises Game Pass. Microsoft even tried to get rid of it after they rolled it out and decided in a shareholder meeting that would be suicidal after the Xbox One generation. They have even realized that it's bad. Yeah. It's fucking Movie Pass all over again. You're not going to get to the number of concurrent users and subscribers to where it matters, because you can't put out content significant and fast enough to bring that many people into your service.
Yep.
Because if I'm having a down month with it, I can just fucking turn it off. I can cancel. You'd have to be hitting me with something every single month. And it's just not feasible, because you either have to do it solely with first party, or you'd have to be paying hundreds of millions of dollars to get third party titles that mean something onto your console, onto your Game Pass or whatever.
I mentioned last week, like, why isn't Jedi Survivor on Game Pass, right? I mean, Xbox has the EA is a part of the Game Pass, and look at our amazing EA titles. Okay, where's Jedi Survivor?
Well, that's the problem is,
Yeah, you can't afford Jedi Survivor, so it's not there.
that's right. Yeah, because Jedi Survivor, EA in the last quarter took home almost $2 billion. Jedi Survivor is the fourth best-selling game of this year.
Yep.
Behind Hogwarts, Modern Warfare 2, and Resident Evil 4. It's just not feasible. So, you won't ever see Call of Duty on Game Pass, and
unless it's like 2 or 3 years old.
Well, on this month on PlayStation Plus, they gave away an older Call of Duty game,
Cold War. Yeah.
Anyway, I thought that was interesting, and I'm sure this time next week the deal will be done and Activision will be owned by Microsoft. So that wraps up this story. Johnny, it's time for our final segment of the week. That segment is, of course, called
One Up.
One Up. I'll continue this week's tradition of going first. So,
okay,
Clocktower. Some of you hardcore horror fans remember the Clocktower series from PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. Some of you extra hardcore horror fans like myself know that Clocktower was originally a Super Nintendo game that was only ever released in Japan. And it's just like the PS1 game, but it's in beautiful 16-bit pixel art. But to this day and date, the 1995 classic has never been released in the West until now. That's right.
Huh.
So the Clocktower series, the first Clocktower game, is officially coming to America. We're going to have it as a port next year on PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, and PC. And Limited Run Games is going to be releasing a physical version of this game. Newsflash: buy the physical version of this game. Clocktower is one of the most expensive fucking game series to buy on the classic PlayStation console here in the US. You're definitely going to want to buy the physical copy of this. So I thought this was worth mentioning. There's trailers out now. You can go check them out. But we are finally, long overdue, going to be getting the original Clocktower here in the US. So I will be getting that immediately upon release. I cannot wait for that. That's my one up this week, Johnny.
That was news to me. I had no idea that Clocktower was originally an SNES title. I remember it on the other console, but
the original survival horror game. Yep.
That's cool. My one up is Baldur's Gate 3 hype. I just want, for the people that don't understand what a monumental release this is going to be. Baldur's Gate was the biggest computer RPG Dungeons and Dragons series way back in the day, in the very early days of PC gaming. Baldur's Gate was king. Like, my dad played fucking Baldur's Gate. Like, Baldur's Gate was the shit. And Baldur's Gate 3, the keys were handed to Larian Studios, the same developers of Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2, a game that I have shouted from the rooftops of how amazing it is. Well, they're developing this game. And they've now revealed that the game is going to be fully moddable. So this is a D&D 5 version, full-blown game with full modability. So if you are an RPG fan, if you are a Dungeons and Dragons fan, this is a Skyrim level release. We are going to be playing this game for a decade with the mods and the shit that people cook up, because all these DMs that have these amazing stories and stuff that they've created, they can sit down and build it in Baldur's Gate 3. And there's going to be so many like full game mods for this game. I can't wait. I cannot wait. It comes out in like a little bit over 2 weeks. I think August 3rd is the official release date. And they did the same thing that they did with the last two titles, which is they let you buy it ahead of time. You can get it early access. You pay the full sticker price, and you get to sort of play the iterations as they're updating. I knew I wanted this game so badly that I bought in the moment they had an early access thing, and I've just been randomly every couple months I'll just hit the update button and fire it up and kind of poke around for an hour or two and just see how it's running and stuff. I haven't delved anything past maybe like 10 hours or so into the campaign because I can't wait till it's done. I didn't want to play 30 hours of it and then when it comes out have to do those 30 hours again. So I've intentionally kept myself anxious and waiting, and now it's like it's a little bit more than 2 weeks away. And y'all, if you like CRPGs, if you like turn-based RPGs, if you're a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, this is going to be your shit that you're going to play for a very, very, very long time. It's time to be excited. It's coming soon. Oh my God, it's almost here. That's it for me.
All right. Well, right on cue. That actually wraps up this week's episode of the Power Gamer Podcast. We will, of course, be back again next week with another great episode for you to enjoy. Until that time, I'm Mike Dawson.
And I'm Johnny Paulus.
Tune in next time. Take care.
Catch you on the flip-flop.
Oh, yeah.